welcome to another deep dive. You guys, today we're going to be focusing on learning English.
Yes.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at some simple conversations that you can use if you're just beginning to learn English.
Right.
And, sometimes it can be a little bit intimidating to start speaking in a new language.
True.
But we're going to break down a conversation today that's very simple, very easy to understand.
Okay.
And it's all about volunteering.
Sounds good.
And it takes place in a community garden.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So community gardens are great.
Yeah, so the title for today is Community Service Day.
Perfect.
And I'm really excited to dive into this with our expert.
Hi, everyone.
So before we get into the breakdown of the conversation and some of the key vocabulary and phrases, let's actually hear the conversation.
Okay.
I'm going to be Alex.
All right.
And our expert is going to be Ella.
Sounds fun.
And let's just imagine we're both at this community garden.
Okay.
Hi, Ella.
Hi, Alex.
The community garden needs so many volunteers today.
Yes, I heard we're going to plant new vegetables and clean up the area.
I'm really excited to contribute to our neighborhood.
These tools are quite heavy.
Oh,
Could you help me distribute them?
of course we should coordinate with the other volunteers.
I've never done gardening before. I hope I don't mess up.
Don't worry, the supervisor will guide us through everything.
This experience is really rewarding. We should volunteer more often.
I agree. So there you have it, a simple conversation about volunteering.
What's fascinating here is that they used very basic words to have a complete conversation.
Yeah.
That's a great starting point for English beginners.
Exactly.
You don't have to know all the fancy vocabulary to be able to communicate your ideas.
And I think what's also really interesting is that you can see how a conversation flows. There's a natural back and forth.
Right.
And, you can see how each person responds to the other person.
Yeah. And it's also very encouraging for English beginners because it shows that you can have a meaningful interaction even with a limited vocabulary.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to focus on today.
Okay.
Is we're going to look at some of the key words and phrases in this conversation.
Right.
That you can start using right away.
Wonderful.
So let's start with the vocabulary, shall we?
Sure.
One of the words that really stuck out to me was the word contribute.
Okay.
Alex said he was excited to contribute to the neighborhood.
Right.
So what does contribute mean?
Well, contribute basically means to give something or to help in some way. So you're adding something positive.
Yeah. And in this case, he's contributing his time and his effort to the community garden.
Exactly.
Now, can you give us another example
Yeah.
of how we might use the word contribute in a sentence?
Sure. You could say, I want to contribute to my community by volunteering, or I contribute to my team by sharing my ideas.
Perfect. Those are great examples.
Thank you.
Now, Ella said she needed help to distribute the tools.
Yes.
So can you explain what distribute means?
Of course, distribute means to give something out to different people or places. You're basically spreading things around. So in this case, Ella is asking for help to give out the tools to everyone who needs them.
You like sharing.
Exactly. It's like sharing.
So, for example, if you were, handing out flyers for an event, you could say, I need to distribute these flyers around the neighborhood.
Yeah. Or you could say, the teacher distributed the exam papers to the students.
Perfect. So you can see how distribute can be used in lots of different situations.
Exactly.
Now, another word I wanted to touch on was coordinate.
Okay.
Alex said that they should coordinate with other volunteers.
Right.
So what does coordinate mean in this context?
Coordinate means to organize something together or to work together smoothly. So in the garden scenario, they need to coordinate their efforts to make sure everything gets done efficiently.
Right. So it's about working together as a team.
Exactly.
Can you give us an example of how we might use coordinate in another sentence?
Sure. You could say, we need to coordinate our schedules to find a time to meet. Or, the team coordinated their efforts to complete the project on time.
Perfect. So, again, you can see how coordinate can be used in various contexts.
Yeah, and it's a very useful word to know, especially when you're working with others.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to rewarding.
Okay.
Um, Ella mentioned that the experience was rewarding.
Yes.
So what does rewarding mean?
Rewarding means something that gives you a good feeling or a sense of satisfaction.
Uh-huh.
So it's something that makes you feel happy and fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, Ella is saying that volunteering makes her feel good.
Right, because she's helping her community.
Exactly.
And is giving her a sense of purpose.
Uh-huh.
Now, how else could we use the word rewarding in a sentence?
You could say, helping others is a rewarding experience, or learning a new skill can be very rewarding.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, even if you're not fluent in English yet, these words that we've just discussed
Right.
distribute coordinate rewarding.
Yeah.
They can really help you express yourself, especially when talking about community service or volunteering.
Absolutely. And you know what I think is great about these words?
What's that?
Is that they're not overly complicated. They're words that you can easily understand and start using right away.
Exactly. And that's what makes them so valuable for English beginners.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some useful phrases
Okay.
that you can use in your daily life.
Sounds good. I'm sure our listeners will find these very helpful.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
One phrase that I thought was really useful was when Ella asked, "Could you help me distribute them?"
Mm-hmm.
So this is a very polite and clear way to ask for help.
Absolutely.
And it's a phrase that you can use in many different situations.
Right.
So, for example, you could say,
Mm-hmm.
"Could you help me with my homework?"
Right.
Or, "Could you help me carry these groceries?"
Exactly.
And what I like about this phrase is that it shows that you're being respectful of the other person's time.
Mm-hmm.
You're not demanding their help. You're asking for it politely.
Yes, and it also opens up a conversation. It invites the other person to engage with you.
Right? And that's how you build relationships.
Exactly.
Now, Alex said, "I've never done gardening before."
Right.
This is a very simple way to express that you're new to something.
And it's a great way to show that you're eager to learn.
Yeah. And it often leads to the other person offering help or guidance.
Exactly, because they want to share their knowledge with you.
Right. So, don't be afraid to say, "I've never done this before,"
Mm-hmm.
because it can actually be a great way to start a conversation and learn something new.
Absolutely.
Now, before we move on to more phrases,
Hmm.
I wanted to remind our listeners that
Yes.
if you're enjoying this deep dive and you're finding it helpful,
Be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a like.
yes, please do.
It really helps other language learners discover our content.
And it keeps us motivated to keep creating more.
All right, so let's get back to those phrases.
Okay.
One phrase I wanted to point out was when Ella said, "These tools are quite heavy."
Yeah.
It's a simple statement of fact, but it could lead to a request for help. Exactly. She's kind of hinting that she might need some assistance.
Right. It's like a subtle way of saying, "I need help."
Yeah, and you can use this pattern for other situations too, like this box is quite heavy or this bag is quite heavy.
Yeah. And it's a nice way to do it because you're not directly asking for help, but you're kind of letting the other person know that you might need it.
Right, exactly.
Now, another useful phrase was when Alex said, "Don't worry."
Oh, yes, don't worry. It's a classic.
Yeah.
It's such a great phrase to reassure someone or to comfort them.
And it's so simple,
It is.
but it's so effective.
Very effective.
Like if someone is nervous about something, you can just say, "Don't worry, you'll do great."
Right. Or if someone spills their drink, you could say, "Don't worry, it happens to everyone."
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
just a nice way to show empathy and support.
Yeah, and it can really put someone at ease.
Now let's look at Ella's suggestion. We should volunteer more often.
Oh, I love this one.
Yeah.
It's a great example of how you can express a desire or make a suggestion without being too forceful.
Right. And notice how she uses the word should.
Yeah,
It's a softer way than saying we have to volunteer more often.
it is. It's much more gentle.
And you can use should for other suggestions too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
Where?
we should go to the park sometime or we should try that new restaurant.
Yeah, it's a very versatile word.
And it's a nice way to kind of get your point across without being too demanding.
Exactly.
Now, another phrase I liked was when Alex said, "I agree."
Oh, yes, I agree. It is a simple but powerful phrase.
It shows that you're listening
Yes.
and that you're on the same page as the other person.
It's a great way to build rapport.
and to keep the conversation flowing.
Exactly.
Now let's do a quick recap of all the helpful phrases we've covered so far.
Okay.
Could you help me? Is a polite way to ask for assistance.
I've never done this before. Is perfect for expressing your newness to something.
These tools are quite heavy. Is an indirect way to say you need help.
Don't worry is a comforting reassurance.
We should volunteer more often, is a gentle suggestion.
And I agree is a simple expression of agreement.
Remember, these are just a starting point.
Right.
The more you practice, the more confident you'll become in your English communication.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Now, before we wrap up, I just wanted to remind you
That if you enjoy these deep dives and you find them helpful,
be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a like.
yes, it really does help other language learners find our content.
Okay, so now that we've learned some useful vocabulary and phrases,
Yes.
let's see how we can actually use them in a real-life situation.
Okay, sounds good.
So imagine you're at a park cleanup,
Okay.
and you see someone struggling with a heavy trash bag.
All right.
How could you use some of the phrases we've learned to offer help?
Well, I could say something like, that bag looks quite heavy. Could you help me carry it?
Perfect. And if they seem hesitant or unsure, you could add, don't worry, we can do it together.
Yes, exactly. That shows that you're willing to share the load and work as a team.
And after you finish carrying the trash bag, you could say, this is really rewarding. We should do this more often.
Yes, that's a great way to express your feelings about the experience and suggest doing it again in the future.
Exactly. So you see how easy it is to use these simple phrases in a real-life conversation.
Yeah, and the more you practice, the more natural it will become.
That's right. And remember, making mistakes is part of the learning process.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
So keep practicing, keep learning, and most importantly, keep having fun with English.
Yes, have fun with it.
Well, that brings us to the end of another deep dive. We hope you enjoyed learning about simple conversations for community service.
Yes, and remember, even small contributions can make a big difference.
Until next time, keep exploring the amazing world of English.
Thanks for joining the conversation here at Kaz English. We hope you found it fun and informative. Don't forget to check out kazapp.uk. That's kazapp.uk for more tips, resources, and interactive practice. Keep exploring, keep chatting, and we'll catch up with you again soon.